The NHL is back. Not sure how I feel. Feel the same? Let's talk about it. Happy Wednesday or sad Wednesday. I don't know, whatever you're feeling today, that Wednesday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Hockey Podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply. At participating locations, visit circlek.com for details. I'm Leah here with Petey. We got Shane behind the Mac. Shane's trying to uplift the vibes because
there's a little bit of energy there.
We're feeling some type of way today.
Yeah,
just to
I don't know what that way is.
Front.
I don't know what that way is, Leah.
We're gonna
dive deeper into it because I don't know if we've really harnessed those feelings.
Yeah. So here's what we got on tap today. We're going to preview the Atlantic Division. I know the season already started, but that's the last division we have still to preview, so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about last night. We're going to talk about opening night, the feelings that we have. We're going to dive into it, and then we are going to talk about the Roadrunners in Arizona State because there's hockey in the desert still. So that's what we got on deck for you today. So everybody, take a moment, think about how you're feeling. Let us know in the chat. We'll get to it in just a little bit. And we hope that you also give your Atlantic Division predictions because this is an interesting one. And we got some Arizona-born players in this division.
Yeah, we do.
It's the very heavily Arizona-born division. But Petey, first of all, when you look at this division,
yes.
What are your, I don't know, what sticks out to you? We obviously have the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah.
A game was played last night between Florida and Boston, the 1-2 finishers in this division. Last season, you have the Leafs who are trying to make a run. You have this group of up-and-coming teams that we've been saying up-and-coming for 4 years, Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa. Then you have Montreal Lightning who, were a dynasty. So it's an interesting one. There's kind of teams all over the spectrum in this division.
I think this is one of the most dominating divisions in the NHL over the last several years. I don't know if I can say that this year. And I think you're still looking, Florida's still where they are, but there's so many teams, like you said, in that bottom pack that we said year after year, oh, this is the year they're going to make a playoff push. Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa. Yeah, well, guess what?
This is the fourth year in a row we've said it.
They're not.
None of them?
No.
Wow. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, it's funny. I already had a talk with Sean about his team. They got worse. Look at Buffalo's on the verge and they get worse. So this division is interesting to me because I think some of the best teams over the last decade come from this division. Just not this year.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into it. We'll start at the top. Florida, defending Stanley Cup champs. Obviously, they had quite a few losses, but nobody that was a key difference maker in their Stanley Cup run. Looked really dominant last night against Boston until the last 2 minutes where they gave up. I was like,
they were already in the parking lot trying to get away from the hurricane.
Yeah, that's true. There were some other factors there. Is Florida deep enough to repeat?
I'm not sure. And you look at the losses, their biggest loss was Brandon Montour. And beyond Montour, defensively, you look at their bottom six, and it's just got blown up. There were so many guys that were key role players for this team in the bottom six of their forward group that are now gone, and that's going to make a huge difference for this team. I don't know if they're deep enough. I do think, though, that when it comes down to it, Bobrovsky's still a winner. You still look at how this team plays and how they defend, and you look at their offensive up front and their power play, and you got a happy Reinhart and Bennett's playing for a contract. You've got so many of those factors. I think there's going to be a little dip early in the season. The hangover is going to be real. I believe that, but I think the Florida Panthers repeat. as the division champion. I think this team is going to be very good. Can they repeat as Stanley Cup champions? Gosh, that is such a huge, huge hill to climb.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
It's hard to put that on anybody. They were in the Stanley Cup finals 2 consecutive seasons. To do it 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and we saw the toll that took on Tampa Bay.
Man, that's got to do. A lot of things have to happen right there. So I won't say no because I still think they're an elite team in the Eastern Conference.
Well coached as well.
Absolutely. So all things go right. They stay healthy. Yes, I think this team can
I would
be
say
there.
They're definitely a contender still.
100%.
Yeah. Florida intrigues me. I've always, been a fan of them. I was a fan of their Stanley Cup run. I love cheering for smaller market teams, non-traditional teams. So I would love to see it, but yeah, it's going to be, like you said, a tough hill to climb. Let's stay in the state of Florida, to Tampa, who is kind of like a few years past where Florida is now. Obviously,
anytime you still have Steven Stamkos, you're going to be...
too soon.
Dude, I just saw a picture of him in a Preds jersey.
It's not right.
The weirdest looking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It is not right.
So Tampa, obviously, their biggest loss being Steven Stamkos. They just came off a huge Cup dynasty. No Stamkos or Sergachev, who is now a member of the Utah Hockey Club. They bring in Jake Gensel. Part of the trade, a lot of guys that we're familiar with here in Arizona, JJ Mosier, Connor Geekie, go over to Tampa Bay. Is this team still a Stanley Cup contender, or are they just a good NHL team?
Their window is closing. I mean, you still look at I think the Stamkos loss is going to hurt them as much off the ice as it does on the ice. I know he's an elite goal scorer still, and it's unfortunate for Tampa they couldn't get this done, but it's still Kucherov and Point and Hedman and Vasilevsky. This is still a very good hockey team. Having said that, they're all getting older. It's all the same message from the same coach year after year after year. Something's going to have to give. I don't think this is the year for Tampa Bay. Now, could all things go right and everybody falls on track and it goes well? Of course it can. Gensel can absolutely be a guy that can help this team. And JJ Mosier in preseason was playing on their number 1 pair with Hedman. Yeah, that's right. JJ Mosier. I do think you're starting to see, we talked about it when we talked about the Metro with Washington and Pittsburgh taking a step back. Mm-hmm. I think Tampa is too. Yeah. Everybody's got that cycle, and I think Tampa's going to start going the other direction now. I think they're getting older. Their window is now.
Yeah, it's funny because when you win the Stanley Cup, like, you're on the biggest high, and we can look at it with every team that's won in the last decade. You kind of put all your chips in, and you're sacrificing your future, and there's going to be a come down. It's totally worth it. Like, I would give anything to have a championship. But you're starting to see it. You're seeing it now with Pittsburgh and Washington. Yep. Chicago already hit that lowest point, and you're probably going to see it soon here with Tampa Bay. But what they accomplished in that window of that was a dynasty team. Is it a dynasty team still? I don't think so. I do think that they're still a very good team in the Atlantic and a good team in the East as well.
Agreed.
So moving on to Boston. The drama for the last 2 weeks was the Jeremy Swayman contract.
Which we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, they're going to start off horribly without settling in.
Well, they got it done, but you have to imagine that like, we talk about arbitration and how it can kind of like upset players, and the same thing happened. There was a battle in the media essentially throughout this whole process. They ended up getting him done. They locked him up. They signed him. Everyone, I'm sure, was happy in the end. But for me, it's just like this unsettling feeling. And then for Boston to go out and have the performance that they did last night as their first game, do I think it's reflective of the season they're going to have? No. I think Boston, they had the best record in the NHL 2 seasons ago. I think they're capable of being that team. But it's just that I feel like might linger.
Yeah, it's funny. I think they needed to get this done. I think without getting the Swayman deal done, I think this beginning of the season starts to collapse, and there's a big war between coaches, management, players. It'd be a mess. They got that solved, but you've got Swayman as a pretty sensitive guy, and your general manager is causing waves in the media. I think it's a problem. I do think it's a problem. I think he'll get over it, and he'll probably play in their next game when they go to Montreal, and things are going to be fine. However,
we see this type of stuff in the NFL all the time with contract holdouts. But continue.
And then they don't perform?
That, or they sit out all of training camp and then they get the deal done, but you still feel this weird way. I mean, You're getting that with Devontae Adams right now, who's not playing because he was requested
and then how do you build that bridge between the organization and the player? And I think that's going to be a problem for Boston right now. But I think the bigger problem with Boston is what I said with Tampa and Florida. It's their bottom of the lineup that Boston was able to throw out 4 lines over the last few years. You're talking about players like DeBrusk, Stanton Heinen, Grzelcyk on the back end, Shattenkirk on the back end, JVR, Maroon. They had this bottom 6 forward group that had an identity. That's all changed. They're all gone. And I think the Swayman Allmark pairing, we saw their hug. By the way, why don't Shane and I do that after every show? Like the Swayman hug. We should probably do that. But I think that relationship is now gone. So I do think you're going to see Boston, a team that was 1 point out of first place in the division a year ago. I think Boston is starting to look like a team that might take a step backward. You added a couple pieces, Zadorov in the back end. My God, is he big. Oh,
oh my God, did you see the pictures of the What Chaos guys? And listen, not to poop on Pete. He's very self-aware of his, but like his posts about it were so hysterical. And he looked.
He's very self-aware of what?
His height.
Yeah, he's a massive human being, Zadorov.
I just wanted you to say that.
And Elias, I keep saying Elias Pettersson because I want to say Elias Pettersson. Elias Lindholm. I don't know why I
There's
do that.
a lot of Eliases.
But those two guys can help, but it's going to take a while for them to get into this system, into this team and fit in. They looked totally a mess yesterday in Florida. They're going to be fine. It's still a playoff team.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're the Boston Bruins that you're getting 109, 110 points that they've had over the last 2 seasons.
You want to hear a fun fact about the Boston Bruins and Don Sweeney?
I'd love to hear a fact.
My mom was in his wedding.
That is an amazing nugget. That's a really good nugget.
Yeah, so my mom was in Don Sweeney's wedding.
Wow.
Because she was very close friends with his wife, who is a professional figure skater.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, Tuffy. And my mom was a bridesmaid, and because it was a high-profile wedding, because it was an NHL player and a figure skater, the wedding photos were featured in People magazine.
Your mom was in those?
And my mom was in the photos.
Wow, that's a fun fact.
There's my little fun fact.
The funner fact would have been if you would have prepared for the show and had that picture ready to go.
I sent it to our producer, but...
Did you really? I didn't mean to dump on him. Never mind. I was kind of calling you out, and then I threw him under the bus.
It's all good.
Sorry, Deep and Love.
We'll show the picture later in the show, so stay tuned.
There you go.
And by the way, everyone here, Angela, the Watts, Caleb, BC, Mike, thank you all so much for being
Angela's
here.
back. Haven't seen Angela in a long time.
It's been a while.
Okay. No, normally I'd let this slide. You sent it to me 1 minute ago.
Not 1 minute ago. I sent it to you a few minutes ago.
It says 1 minute ago on my phone.
It says 2 minutes ago.
See?
Okay, so it wasn't like you sent it at 8 this morning.
No.
Oh, okay.
But we'll show the picture later in the show.
So this is still
those of you here, please.
Angela, it's on the. Where does she find that?
Please hit the like button. Angela's asking about the Coyotes Forever sticker. Yep. Store.allcity.network.com. You can also type in phnxlocker.com. It'll redirect you.
phnxlocker.com.
I'm wearing the shirt version.
The shirt version of the sticker version.
It felt like an appropriate shirt to wear today. And yesterday, Shane and I matched and we wore our deactivated fan shirts. It felt appropriate yesterday.
I didn't think that far ahead.
We also have the Hockey Belongs in the Desert shirt that you can get as well. So lots of great stuff in the locker if you want to express yourself about this situation, which we'll talk about a little bit later. All right. Well, we will move on to Toronto and our favorite Arizona zone, Auston Matthews, now the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. John Tavares stepping aside. You obviously have Marner back. You have Tavares back. You have Nylander locked up. We say it every year, Petey. Is this finally the year?
And I say it every year. No. It's just easy. This is the easiest prediction in all of the things we do on the show. Is Toronto going to win? No. Okay, moving on. They're not. They're not going to win because they're Toronto. And they screw things up all the time. You think of what they did. Like Marner is supposed to be gone right now, right? They're going to clear up cap space. Marner's going to be out. Marner's there. Tavares, he's there. Did they clear the goaltending situation? Woll is their starting goalie. Does Woll give you the warm fuzzies of a guy that's going to win you the Stanley Cup? No. So how do the same problems? And I love Brad Treliving. I love him. I think he's an outstanding general manager. I think the advice from Shane Doan, former Coyote legend, it's got to be helpful in that room. Why do they go into every season with the same problems? They can't defend, and they don't have good goaltending. Great up front. Same thing every year. Just hit repeat. Is this team going to win? No. I think they'll do better in the regular season, But who cares?
So Chris Tanev and OEL aren't the answer on the back end?
Tanev's going to help. Tanev, and now you've got Morgan Riley and Tanev, I think are great. But you still have 4 of the guys you get on the ice. I think OEL was great in Florida because he was in Florida. Yeah. I think their style of play is much, much different than they play in Toronto. And I think Oliver fit into that structure. Oliver likes to surf up on the play between the neutral zone. He was able to close those gaps in the neutral zone. I don't think he can play the same way in Toronto. I think it's going to be tougher for him to fit in, and I think it's going to be tougher for him to fit in right away. I still think he can be an effective player, but I don't like this team on the back end. I think there's going to be turmoil in the room. Just wait and see, because who's their head coach? Craig Berube. Do you think he's going to be a lot of fun to play for when things go south? I don't think so. So there is going to be this in that locker room, and they are not going to win in the playoffs.
We always do this is Toronto thing.
Yeah.
But is it just the idea they have of themselves that they can win with offense that kills them, or is it it's Toronto thing? Is that just because of the way their roster is made up every year, or is it just this? It's
Toronto, and it's like the
team you love to hate.
Yeah,
it's like the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL.
There is a part of that.
Yeah.
For sure. But one of the biggest problems with Toronto is because they overachieve in the front of the puck and in the offensive zone that they end up having to pay those guys so much. And their cap is so top heavy with their forward group that you don't have the funds left over to buy the pieces that you need in the lower lineup. So you have a deep bottom 6. You don't have the defensive depth that you need, and you don't have a goalie because you don't have the money left over. And it's a money game. And you look at the teams that win. Florida Panthers won because they were deep.
Same with Vegas.
Vegas was deep. Tampa was deep. All those teams. And eventually, the guys that you got there with, you have to pay more and you lose the bottom, and those teams are starting to go down. Well, Toronto did the same thing without winning. So at some point, somebody's going to have to get purged out of that system, and I don't know who it's going to be. They're great in the regular season. They're going to be great in the regular season again this year.
So it's either that or the Tim Hortons Center. What's it called?
The Scotiabank Arena?
Scotiabank Arena was built on like a burial ground, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. It is.
Hey, the Raptors won a championship.
You're right, it is Toronto.
There.
And Toronto is incredibly difficult. The stress, the magnifying glass on that franchise is horrific. It's a very hard place to play. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. Everybody's looking at you, and every team in the league wants you to lose. Every fan base wants Toronto to lose. So that doesn't make it any easier, but they also have unlimited amounts of money that they should be able to buy a championship by now.
Lots of Arizona connections. Auston Matthews, obviously. Matty Nyes. Brad Treliving, current GM there, former GM here in Arizona. Shane Doan, part of the management staff in Toronto as well, and now OEL. So lots of Arizona connections. I know they're a team.
Never going to root for them.
Well, no. I was about to say, I know they're a team you love to hate. I grew up like a Leafs fan from 0 to 9. Okay. So there's a soft spot there. My aunt is like the biggest Leafs fan of all time. So
you're forgiven.
Okay.
Well, we're both Kraken fans, so.
Okay. We already kind of touched on them, but Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, I want to talk about them as a chunk because there's this group that for 4 straight years, is this the year? Who's finally getting over the hump? Ottawa, I think, of that group has had the worst time. They did trade for Ullmark. They did just sign him for a few more years. So they have that going for them. They have some great young prospects. You have Buffalo, where it always feels like it should be the year. They just brought in a new / old coach. That was interesting. Detroit, to me, of this group, feels like the team that's most ready to take the next step. But it's just hard when you look at Florida, Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Yeah. Like, to me, those are still the top 4 in the division. Yeah. Where do one of those teams fit? They have those are wild card teams.
And one of those teams got to jump into one of those teams to get into a spot. And I just don't see it. I think Ottawa's too young, but I say that every year. They've got young stars up front on the back end. Maybe Ullmark can help carry them, but I don't think Ottawa's ready. Buffalo, I think, took a step backwards, actually. I think their top 3 defenders, and you talk about Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin, I think their defending is okay. But Tage Thompson is going to have to really have an outstanding year for this team to even be close. I don't think they're close. I think their bottom end is slower. I don't think they did any favors. Detroit is the closest of those teams. They were the closest of those teams a year ago. I think the Yzer plan is now. I think those young players, Lucas Raymond's going to have a great year. Dylan Larkin's going to have a good year. And then Mo Seider, who won the Calder Trophy a few years ago, he's going to have to really be the guy on the back end. I still look at their goaltending and go, I don't think it's good enough. And you've got to have good goaltending to make it in the playoffs. And I just don't think Detroit has that in their in their recipe book to have good goaltending. I think this team is going to be close, but Patrick Kane is another player who his best years are a decade behind him. And with Ville Husso and Cam Talbot driving the bus on the back end, I don't think Detroit makes the playoffs.
Interesting.
Again.
Not even as a wild card?
No.
Do you think
Sorry,
do you think a wild card would come from the Metro then?
Yeah, I do. I think the Metro is stronger this year than the Atlantic.
All right. Interesting. Well, last team to talk about, unless there was more you wanted to say on either of those. Montreal came in last season. Obviously, they drafted Slafkovsky a couple years ago. We all are familiar because it was the Logan Cooley draft. They added Patrick Laine.
How'd that work out, though?
Yeah.
He's hurt.
Yeah.
He's not playing for weeks upon weeks. Sorry.
Well, and he was hurt last year. Plus, is Montreal still the worst team in this division, or can they? I don't think either of us are sitting here saying they're a playoff team, but can they get out of the basement?
No.
You think they're still last?
They're a basement team. They should be in the American League. Sorry. It's a bad
Petey's just trying to piss off Canada today.
But look at again, I go back, I start with the goaltending. Their goaltending tandem is Samuel Montembeault and Caden Primo. That's a really good American League tandem. I don't think this team is ready. And when they are ready, they'll start spending money in that spot. Now, do they have some good pieces up front, some good young pieces? Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Slafkovsky, really good young forwards up front, but this team just doesn't have enough horses. They don't have anything deep in the lineup. They don't have anything to defend. I think this team is going to struggle. This is one of the teams that's going to vie for the lottery next year. I think this team is going to be really bad.
All right. Wow.
Sorry.
Hot take Petey is here
big
today.
Surprise. I'm grumpy today. I wonder why.
I wonder why. I'm also grumpy. Well, we will give our predictions for the Atlantic. I will show the wedding photo that everybody's clamoring for, I'm sure. And then we're going to get to talking about our feelings after last night. All of that coming up on PHNX Hockey. It's been a busy stretch for me, Petey. I think you know this. Many of you know that I have a new roll hair, and sometimes I'm not getting home till 7 o'clock. I don't want to cook a whole dinner at that point. The way I like to do it is I cook a big dinner, I have leftovers. I just haven't had time to do that. That's where Factor Meal Kits comes in for me, because they're fresh meals that are already prepared for me.
But what if we want to eat healthy?
They're healthy meals.
What?
They're fresh, not frozen, and every single meal is ready in just 2 minutes, which for my busy life right now, that's what I need. I'm telling you, some of these meals are like something I would eat in a restaurant. It's so good. If you've never tried Factor before, check them out. I'm telling you, these meals are phenomenal. Petey's tried them.
Yep.
They also have smoothies, which are good for being on the go in the morning, or just for a little snack. I'm a big fan of Factor Meal Kits, and I want you to give them a try as well. Right now, you can head to factormeals.com/ and I'm sorry to say it, PHNX Yotes 50 and use code PHNX Yotes 50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code PHNX Yotes 50 at factormeals.com/ PHNX Yotes 50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next month. So
fantastic.
It's a steal. Make sure you're checking it out. Petey, what's coming up at Gila River?
I talked about Cheap Trick come and gone now, and I will have to look at the fall lineup. I've been a little lax, but I know their entertainment is something you need to check into, because I'm not just about their gambling and the greatest sports book in casino in the state of Arizona, which we all go to all the time at the Wild Horse Pass casinos. It's all about the entertainment for me, because I'm an old guy that likes to go to a smaller venue, which they have at the Wild Horse Pass Casino. Check out their theater.
Yeah, and check out, we have all of our Cardinals away game watch parties are at the Wild Horse Pass. We have food and drink specials there. The restaurants are amazing. If you're looking for a staycation, it's still warm, so go check it out. They have an amazing
staycation
pool.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You can visit playatgila.com for more details. All right. Prediction time. Our favorite part. Petey, you start.
Sure. If Florida Panthers win again, we'll zip through this. If Florida wins again, and after bashing the Toronto Maple Leafs finishing second in the regular season, great offensive season. They're going to tease Florida at points in the season to win the division, but they'll finish in second. Tampa Bay is going to jump over Boston. I got Boston really falling this year. I think Boston, with their turmoil and their new lineup, I think the Boston Bruins finish in 4th. Detroit finishes best of the next pack, but still far short of the playoffs. Buffalo, Ottawa, and Montreal.
All right. I kind of feel like doing a hot take.
Oh my.
I think Toronto is going to win the division, but let me explain what's going to happen.
That's a hot take.
It's going to be one of those where you're like, wow, like this team, like Boston a few years ago where they had an unbelievable regular season and then lost in the first round. Like that's what I'm seeing from this team. So give me Toronto 1, Florida 2.
Homer.
Sorry. Boston 3, Tampa 4. I guess I'll go Detroit. I guess I'll just go Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, which was the finish last year, and I'm pretty sure similar to what you said. I know they're kind of going to be similar, but I'm going to try and mix it up.
I think the hot
top.
take is Toronto. Yeah. I think that's a hot take.
Yep. All right. Shane's Mr. Hot Take. So
yeah, there's not really room for hot takes in this one. I mean, there are teams that can be very, very good, but I don't really see anything else happening other than Florida, Tampa, Toronto. That's I think that's the 1, 2, 3.
Where's Boston?
No, yeah, you're right. Boston's probably 3. No, Boston's 4. I'm going to say Boston's 4. There's my hot take. Then Detroit, Buffalo, Montreal, Ottawa.
Okay, so you have Ottawa last.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to stink. Yeah, well, you can't go wrong with those bottom teams
Yeah.
in this division. I think they're bad hockey teams.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when you live out here, it's funny. There's a West Coast bias. We talk about the West Coast bias at all. We will not see Montreal or Ottawa on TV all year. We won't see them. We will forget they exist. We'll see Toronto, plenty of Toronto. We could see Florida and Boston literally every day.
Yeah.
Like those teams get as much television time as any teams in the NHL. Detroit is we're gonna see a lot.
Original
but we're
6.
gonna forget Ottawa and Montreal exist. Sorry. That's true.
I love everything he says, he just adds in one more Canadian city to try and to make mad.
Because I know they're all tuning in. The whole entire country, coast to coast, from Newfoundland to the shores of British Columbia, are all dialed in today.
David said Florida Panthers will have to repeat this year. Let us know in the chat who you think's going to win the division, where you think things will shake out. And before we move on, we have the long anticipated photo of
here it is.
of Don Sweeney's wedding. Here it is. So my mom is just to the left of the bride.
Standing up with the big hair?
Yep.
Oh, the 80s were great, weren't they? Wait, is that late 80s, early 90s?
I think it's the 90s because I think I was alive. It's actually the late 90s, probably.
Buddy, that is...
I was alive, but I was like a baby because I wasn't there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there they are. Good. Don Sweeney on the right, to the right of the bride. So there you go. I'm telling the truth. Telling the truth.
Great wedding photo.
All right, Petey. Well, I feel like we needed to kind of get into the show and let it ruminate because last night, yesterday, it was a very, very emotional day for not just me, but I know a lot of people watching, a lot of people listening, a lot of people on Twitter. It was, and warning, we're going to talk about Utah, obviously, but last night was Utah's opening night, and the red carpet was rolled out. Oh, I guess the blue carpet was rolled out quite literally from the NHL, as they should. Kind of blow it up, say, hey, like this is the new franchise. They had concerts and performers. They had the ESPN panel like out there in front of the arena. Mark Messier was wearing a Utah sweater. They really went all out for it. And they had, it was like a storybook game. Dylan Guenther scoring the first goal in Utah history. Clayton Keller now is the captain there, something we talked about for years and years and years on this show. And for all the fanfare in Utah, and let me just start by saying I'm so thrilled for the people of Utah, of Salt Lake City, the people who get to have the joy of having an NHL team there. For us in Arizona, it was, I think it was overwhelmingly a very painful experience. And I think when you go through this process, it's been now 6 months since we found out the team was relocating. There's so many different phases because there was that initial hurt. And then there was the time where you can kind of forget about it. Then, there's things like the draft and free agency, and you're reminded again. And then training camp, like I found really hard. And all of a sudden, you can tell that Utah has a social and video team and graphics team, because now they have a cohesive brand on social media, and that's hard to not see on your timelines. And then you have yesterday where there's this hype around the entire hockey community for a team that we know so well, but is no longer ours. And I think that's what's hard. Like, so many of us in the Discord last night, for example, were talking, and like Dylan Guenther scored, and we're like, good for Dylan Guenther. Oh, that hurts, because he was supposed to be the future here. He was hope for the future. He was going to be the prolific goal scorer for the Coyotes, and now he's going to be the prolific goal scorer for the Utah Hockey Club. Those things were hard to reconcile. I had a really hard time watching the game. I truthfully bawled my eyes out. I made it about 12 minutes into the game before that happened. It felt therapeutic, though. It needed to happen. I was surprised by the feelings of grief that I felt, like, in my body physically. Like, unfortunately, I've dealt with grief in my life and, like, with loss of people. And this did not feel that different. Obviously, different scales. But, like, feeling grief in this situation is real. And that's how I felt. And it was really, really hard to hear the announcers. I mean, it was all Utah focused. If I was a Blackhawks fan, which they had their fanfare last year with the Bedard show to start, but like every intermission, it was like PK Subban putting on the Utah sweater and the mascot involved. And it was Utah, 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 Utah. That was the whole angle of the broadcast, as it should have been. But like, to hear people finally recognize this team for what it could be, its potential on the ice, that all we wanted here in Arizona was people to take it seriously, and it just felt like it never could be that because of all the off-ice distractions. To see the comments from the players, Clayton Keller saying that it's been hard in his career because there have been so many distractions and people are always asking him and he doesn't have answers, and he said, now I can just go out and think about winning. Logan Cooley saying, this is the most excited I've ever been for a hockey game, which I'm sure it is. But then I think, well, what about your first game in Arizona, your first NHL game as a Coyote? I know he meant nothing by it. If he came on here, he would probably say that meant a lot to him too. I'm not saying that, but just seeing Gary Bettman sitting on the glass next to Ryan Smith laughing when Gary Bettman for years and years and years was the champion of this market. Once again, I'm not saying this was his fault. The person to blame is Alex Morello. It is and always will be. But it's just really hard. And the thing that I have a hard time with is there's a lot of people who feel the exact same way I do, but there's also obviously the group who are following the team to Utah, and they should support them. There's also a group of people who say, get over it, move on, they're gone. I have a hard time with that because being a Coyotes fan is like part of who I am. So you're telling me to just get over a part of myself. I can't just do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting like choked up, but like just have a little bit of empathy for like what people are going through. I'm emotional, so I'm gonna stop. But that's my take.
No, but understand, and I want people to understand what Leah's been through. Leah moved here, and her mom was part of the staff of this team. She was a kid that grew up in the rink, and this team was important to her through her formative years growing up, and then it becomes her job, and it becomes things that her life becomes focused on, and it's gone. And it's more than a hockey team. It is, and I know Oakland's going through it with their baseball team.
Oh my gosh!
So I understand those feelings.
Yeah.
I do, and I this whole franchise was my life.
Yeah.
Well, literally, it was my way of life and my job for over 20 years. My son was born in it, just like you. I look at my son and you, and very similar in how you grew up around this. And he said the same things last night. And he texted me privately and said some things about how he felt about this, and it wasn't good. For me personally, and I can only go what I feel. First of all, I'd be a fraud if I got on here and said, shake my fist, because I do talk Utah hockey still, because I still know these players. I know this team. I know the game.
And your job is to be a hockey analyst.
That's what I do for a living. So I'm still going to talk about this team. My relationship with this franchise changed in 2020.
Yeah.
When this franchise let me go and I was no longer part of the staff, that's when I went through what you're going through now. That was my divorce from this team, where I was able to go through that emotional time. And I did. I had that emotional shutdown with this team at that time. And then after that, after I came through that and started to do this, it was no longer that passion for the connection to me. It was a passion for the sport.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. It was different.
Yeah.
I was looking at them from an arm's length then, instead of embracing them. So I think it was easier for me, this transition, because I'd already been through that emotional breakup back in 2020. Having said that, what I noticed on the national broadcast last night, which you kind of pointed out, was, hey, Utah this, Utah that. Buddy, it's the same team that played in Arizona a year ago. Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, Keller, Ingram, same guys. Yes, they have a handful of new players, but this team is the same team that nobody watched a year ago nationally, that weren't on those big, high focus, high profile games. Only because the team moved now, they're a big deal. So I wonder if they'd be getting that same fanfare and that same recognition across the NHL platform if they were still here. And I think the answer would be no. I think this would be the sleeper team of the league. I think teams would all of a sudden look up at Christmas time and go, oh my goodness, the Coyotes are right in it, because it's the same team. And they've just gotten through that they've gotten through that rebuild. And this is now, they're going to get national focus. They're on national TV 7 times this season. They are going to get that push.
Compared
to
the one last year.
Yes. And again, it's same players. And I think you saw it with Seattle. You saw it last year with Connor Bedard. This is the new shiny toy.
Yeah.
And I get it. But this was Arizona's shiny toy. We're the one that built the toy. We're the one that put the toy in the package. Like, this is our toy, and your guys are the ones that are getting to play with it. And that's where the frustration comes in. I do think this is the better hockey team. I think it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
But I understand the sentiment of everything you said, Leah, to you personally. I understand. I understand the Arizona fans. I've taken abuse on Twitter that you know, calling me out for a sellout. I get it. But again, if you don't want to watch them, don't. And I want to say this. If Gary Bettman comes on tomorrow and says, there's a new team coming, we're shovels in the ground, there's a new team coming back, Arizona 2.0 is coming, Lee and I are going to be the first 2 people here sitting behind a microphone supporting this team from the second they talk about it, period. End of story. So don't think that our allegiances, mine specifically, have gone somewhere else. I live here. My son lives here. My family's here. My wife is here. This is where I live. This is where my hockey roots are in Arizona, and that's where they will continue to be. Having said that, I'm going to talk about all kinds of hockey teams, because that's what I do for a living, and Utah just happens to be one of those. And I enjoy watching the players that I've followed for a very long time.
Yep. I think that's fair to say. The Discord was a very therapeutic place last night. If you're not a diehard, you should definitely join one, just even to be in our Discord. And I want to say something that someone in our Discord wrote last night. Nicholas wrote this. These goals, these hits, these saves, they're not for us anymore. They're for Utah. I can't deal with that. But damn, am I happy these human beings are being treated properly as they deserve. And that's the other side of it. It's the reason this is so complex, and the reason that sometimes maybe it's like people on Twitter or on YouTube or wherever, and like comments on social media, it's so, social media is just so black and white, but there's so many complexities to these emotions that we're feeling. At the same time that I'm over the moon thrilled for the players management staff. If you read Craig's article this morning on gophnx.com, which you definitely should, it's a heart-wrenching read, but I think it's a really good one. He talks about that feeling. Like, I think it was hockey ops staff said, well, they haven't said no to anything we've asked for yet. You kind of realize and understand how that group was being treated by the ownership group here, and now they're being treated the way they deserve to be treated. And I am thrilled for that. I want that for them. I want that for anybody in any job ever. And then at the same time, I'm resentful and salty. I'm like, Gary Bettman's on the glass enjoying it because he should, because he made this happen. And I'm also upset that he let this happen, but I also know it's not his fault. Like, it's not black and white, it's gray. And that's why I get frustrated by people online who are just like, get over it, or like, it's fine, or whatever else. Like, it's not black and white. This is complex. It's going to continue to be complex. And I hope that these strong feelings, the fact that I'm like crying on the show today, I hope that passes, because I love being a hockey fan. Like, I wasn't even going to do a fantasy this year. This would have been year 13. Shout out my friends Spencer and Sam for literally pushing me into it. On Monday night, we did a draft with 1 hour notice, and every single person was down, and we did a draft. And I'm glad I did, because it made me, I was like, yeah, I still love hockey. I still do love the NHL, similar to when you got let go by the Coyotes in 2020 and kind of had a year where you had to take a step back. I feel similarly. Obviously, I'm not going to. I host a PHNX hockey show. We love talking about hockey. Like, every time Petey and I get off the show, we're like, wow, it's so fun to talk about hockey. And we hope that you all listening and watching feel the same way. We're not going to talk much about Utah this season unless it's relevant, but it felt really important to talk about this today. We're going to talk more about it on our Friday audio only show with Craig, who just commented on the stream saying he just landed. I don't know about you guys, but if you thought of me as a soaked wash rag and the Utah Hockey Club as two giant hands, by the time I finished writing at 3 a.m., they had completely wrung me dry of emotion. I'm spent. I don't think I understood how much it hurt until yesterday. Maybe I was suppressing it. Not anymore. And yeah, like I said, it was easy to forget about it. And then when you're staring at it right in the face, the pain, like it reopens wounds that maybe you realized weren't even properly healed yet.
And I want to say this too, though, and we've said this on every time we've talked about this topic. This has nothing to do with the city and the fans of Utah at all.
I'm so happy for them.
Exactly.
Genuinely, like, thrilled.
Exactly. Yeah. So please don't take any of this as any slight to your community or your sports community or fandom at all, because we're not doing that. I do think that this and the difficulty of all this, we talked about how the team has gotten better over time and all of those things. I do believe there's a team coming back. I sincerely do. But the piece that I want to say, reiterate what you said, is how this ownership group of Ryan and Ashley Smith has treated this players, staff, and we talked about the toxic culture that was in the staff. We saw it. You and I would go to games last year at Mullet, and both of us had staff people from the Coyotes come up to us crying. Absolutely 100% true on how they were treated, how they felt diminished, belittled, etc. And you talk about the culture right now in the Utah Hockey Club. It's just so different. And I know the players, they look so happy because they're back in the NHL. And I think that's kind of what they're saying. It's good to be back in the NHL. And it doesn't mean that the fan base in Arizona wasn't NHL. It just means that the ownership group did not provide them an NHL experience. That's it.
Yep.
And if Ryan Smith was here owning this team in this market, home run. Everybody'd be thrilled. But you know what? He's not. So we're going to wait for the next best thing, Coyotes 2.0.
Yep.
And it's coming.
It is.
Craig is negative Nancy. It's coming.
We don't know when, but we feel confident.
I'm speaking it into existence. I'm putting the positive energy into the universe. Coyotes 2.0. Let's go.
Okay. I like it. We're putting that out in the universe. And thank you all for being kind and understanding.
That's what this community is about at PHNX. That's what the hockey community that we built at PHNX and all the communities here at PHNX, that's what it's about. That's what we're here for. That's to express the feelings of everybody that follows what we do. So thanks for climbing aboard. And you know what, Leah, I feel terrible. But as with everything in life, this too shall pass.
Yep, absolutely. Well, still to come, we're going to talk about the hockey that is in Arizona, because it is here aplenty. That is coming up on PHNX Hockey. Well, I might need a pair of Shady Rays to put on right now, just because I just cried a little. I need to cover your eyes. I can be like Todri and Eric, rock the shades on the show. And of course, I would do that with Shady Rays. We love Shady Rays. I love Shady Rays. My new pair is almost here. Saul has them. He needs to bring them to me, but I can't wait. I love my Shady Rays. They're so durable. They're stylish. They're polarized. If you've never just perused the Shady Rays website, they have so many different colors and styles for whatever you're looking for. They also have blue light glasses.
What?
And you can get prescription glasses through Shady Rays as well.
And I had to wear them when I did the ASU show just so I could fit in with my friend Anthony.
I did see that. That was awesome. So make sure you check out Shady Rays. You can check them out online. They have a brick and mortar store at Kierland and Scottsdale. And right now, exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Petey, you just went through a home renovation. You know how much it matters, how much quality and workmanship
matters. It changes your life.
Yeah.
It changes your life. It changes your house. If you can't get a new house or it's not time for a new house, change your floors, and it's like living in a new home.
Yeah, it truly is. I know it's a big step to take, but Empire Today makes it so incredibly easy. You don't have to go to a big box store. You can do it all from the comfort of your own home. And the most important thing is they care about quality and they care about doing the work right. They did our floors here. They called us after. How is everything? Is there anything we can do? These are problems that Petey had so many issues with other areas of getting his house done. It's so important, especially something huge like your floor. It can transform your house. My mom just had her floors redone. So make sure when you're getting your floors done, you're using Empire Today. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, and all listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. All right, we're going to carry on. One other gripe that I have with the people of social media today is last night after the game, I tweeted, "Hockey belongs in the desert." Pretty basic statement.
Does it? That's the tweet?
People were like, "Oh, they were in the college arena." Okay, first of all, I said hockey.
Yeah.
Like, did I say NHL?
You did not.
No, I just said hockey. Did I say they belong? Did I say the NHL belongs at Mullet? No, I said hockey belongs in the desert. People just took that statement and were so weird with it. Okay, there's more hockey than just the NHL. There's college, there's the AHL, there's the ECHL, there's youth hockey, there's adult league hockey, and I'm saying it belongs here. That's it.
That's it.
I don't know why that became a thing that everybody was on their high horse about.
Don't be mad at everything.
Don't be mad.
Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Can we try that?
Yeah.
How about we do that today? Why don't we make October 9th?
We should do a podcast where we just don't say anything.
Yeah. October 9th day.
In protest.
October 9th day.
That's what we were going to make today. October 9th day is the Don't Say Anything Day. If you're going to say something mean today, don't say it. Just today, one day, cleanse yourself. Today's that day. October 9th, 2024.
Be more like Atomic Dog and just talk puck.
Yeah.
Yes. And did I say
Buffalo's
something
totally
negative about? But is it okay to be negative about Toronto and Montreal and their teams? I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't getting on someone about their opinion, their appearance, their thoughts.
We can all disagree about things on the ice. I think that's fine. I think that's fair.
I just want to say that's fair game.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, Craig had a one-on-one with Gary Bettman and Bill Daly yesterday. That story is dropping Thursday.
And we'll talk more about that on Friday too.
GoPHNX.com. Yeah, we'll discuss that on the audio-only show this week.
Do you think Craig will show up to that show?
I think he will.
The age gap between me and Craig is minimal.
Thinking about Peyton
It's
Krebs.
minimal. It's minimal. We're nearly the same age. The gap in technology awareness.
Okay, but you were a video coach for
and I can't write or spell. He's
you
good at that.
certainly can't.
I'm such a. You know how bad
He's such a bad
I'm
speller.
so bad. I don't know how many times a day I ask my wife, how do you spell X or Y?
So
why Google exists?
Why are you writing headlines for your show then?
I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be. Why am I doing that? I don't even know I can't. So anyway, I had to call Craig out on his technology, but you're right. It's not fair. I have been involved in technology for most of my life.
When Craig is having trouble with his technology, we need to call him Crab. Come on, Crab.
Come on,
Figure it out.
I'm sorry about that. No, it's a new thing.
All right, back to Arizona hockey.
Yes.
The Tucson Roadrunners are very close to opening their season on the road against Colorado. Home opener just a couple weeks away. A couple more updates compared to our show last week that we had. Maximilian Zuba, Aku Ratu, Maverick Lamoureux, Milos Kelman. Is that just the best list of names of all time?
That's impressive that you did that.
And Ben McCartney all sent down to Tucson, so they'll be joining. Really excited about Maverick Lamoureux. That's a guy we've been looking forward to seeing in Tucson for many years, so Roadrunners fans who are going to follow the Roadrunners, get excited. Zuber was great there last year. Ratu, he had his NHL debut at the tail end of last year. He's a guy kind of on the cusp, a guy who can be a call-up guy. And then the other thing is that Utah did put Matt Villalta on waivers to go back down to Tucson. So that's where we are. And he did clear, which we were concerned last week, especially with the
Swayman issue. I was very concerned.
Well, that, but also just like you look around the league and the lack of goalie stability is very real. I was very glad that he stuck through waivers because he was a huge part of the reason that Tucson had success last year.
Yeah, and I think the Tucson Roadrunners are going to be a good team. I think they're going to have talented players. I still don't think they're done getting players to their roster. I think when you look at the big club in Utah, they're going to have to let somebody else down, whether that's Yamamoto, whether it's Carcone, whether it's, I don't know if it's Josh Doan, but I'm going to throw his name in the mix. Somebody else is coming. And when Nick Bukestad comes off the IR, so this team is only going to get better. I think they're going to get their goaltending tandem with Stauber and Villalta is very good. I think Lamoureux is going to have an exceptional year down there. Max Zuber, their defense is good. This is going to be a good hockey team in Tucson. And I think that when you talk about hockey belonging in the desert, I think you're going to see people show up for this team and support this team. Not like they never have before, they have, but I think this gives an outlet for the people here in the Phoenix Metro. Make a trip down there, support them on TV, just follow this team because I think they're going to be a good hockey team.
Yeah, absolutely. Atomic Dog saying huge mistake on Utah trading Geeky. That was an interesting one. Like when I talk about Lamoureux being on Tucson, Geeky was a guy we're like, oh, he's going to be on Tucson next year. We're so excited. We're so excited. Traded as part of the deal for Sergachev. We talked about that trade over the summer. But that is a bummer, but I still think there's a lot of excitement on this Roadrunners team and a lot of guys you really can cheer for and get behind. I've had a lot of people also asking if we're going to do a trip down the I-10. I definitely want to plan one, so definitely stay tuned. One will happen before the season's end. I can promise you that because we always have a great time down in Tucson, and it's very close for us to go and enjoy professional hockey.
I'm in.
So Let's go. You go. And we'll be covering the Roadrunners all season long. PD talked to John Slaney, the assistant coach, last week on the audio episode. So if you missed that, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. And we're, of course, going to check in with head coach Steve Potvin. So lots of Roadrunners coverage coming your way, as well as Arizona State hockey coverage. Their season is officially underway, PD. Night one. Woohoo! 8-1 win over Air Force. That was awesome. We had a hat trick. We had Cullen Potter's first NCAA goal. You see this team, you're like, yes, out of the gate hot. This is the team we wanted to see. Day 2, 4-3 overtime loss, blowing a late lead in the final minute of the game. Yeah. So it was kind of a deja vu feeling from last year of never being able to win the full 2 games, going to overtime unnecessarily. Luckily, because they're in a conference now, it hurts them in the standings a little less, but they're going to have to clean this up. Yeah,
this team came into the season number 20 in the USCHO poll. High expectations, but you go into Air Force, a team that's not ranked, not going to be in the playoff picture in the NCAA, and you've got to win both games. It is kind of a pattern that we saw over the last 2 seasons with this ASU team since they moved to the mullet, and not being able to close out teams they need to beat on the road and get that weekend sweep. Having said that, they've still got a lot of players hurt. Lucius Cruz, who's one of the biggest transfers from the University of Wisconsin, didn't play and wasn't available yet. They didn't play Homer Gibson in both games. They're starting goalie. They split the goaltending duties. There's a lot of factors going into this. Playing in Air Force, you can say what you want to. It's the highest altitude arena in NCAA. It is hard to play there. And you go into that second night, and I said it when I talked to the guys at the ASU practice a week ago, that Saturday night game is tough. You're tired. And it wears on your body. The third period of the second night is hard, and they proved it. And so I think that this team is going to be better as the season goes along. I still really like this ASU team. I don't think this is, oh my gosh, the season's over. It by no means does this do anything. They have 8 games non-conference to start the season and 2 huge games this weekend. They come back and they sweep the University of Michigan, who's ranked number 10 in the country right now, at home, at Mullet, in 2 early games, one at 3:30, one at 5 over Friday, Saturday. They get those 2 wins. This team will go from, gosh, what a tough weekend, to they're going to be in the top 15. So pump the brakes. Everything's fine. Not to worry. This ASU team is a really good hockey team. And I'm telling you, there's some really good stars on this team. And Cullen Potter is definitely one of them. And their goaltender, Gibson Homer, Lucius Cruz. You look at the Jackson brothers with Sillinger. There's so many players. And two of them I want to mention. Two players were NCHA Conference Players of the Week. You had the forward Bennett Shimmick.
And he's the one who's got the hat trick Friday
4
night.
points on Friday night. And defenseman Noah Beck, the transfer.
Who you just talked to last week.
I just talked to him last year.
You can watch that video on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel.
And so there are some really bright spots on this ASU roster. So pump the brakes. Everything's fine.
Cruz Lucius. Lucius Cruz is a great name, but Cruz Lucius is a better name.
Thank you. I see it. Wait. It's two first names, right?
It is. Yeah. It's two awesome first names.
And Homer Gibson.
Gibson Homer.
Gibson Homer.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Gibson Homer.
We're going to be at the game.
Leah. It's the same thing.
That's Merrill's the first name. Leah is the last name.
Merrill Kelly. Sure. Heard of him. Merrill Stubing.
Craig's going to be at the game on Friday. Craig's going to be at the game on Friday. He'll be writing a story that you can also find at gophnx.com. We will be there on Saturday. Us, Shane, Kevin's going to come. Patrick Brown, our new newsletter writer,
How about Patrick Brown joining the staff?
Yeah, let's take a moment. We have a brand new newsletter that we just rolled out yesterday. Patrick Brown, those who might know, was a member of the Arizona Coyotes staff for many years as their team reporter, their digital reporter. And we are so thrilled to bring him on to write daily newsletters delivered to your inbox Monday through Friday around 6 a.m. every day with exclusive content only to the newsletter. He also has all sorts of fun things in there, codes, polls, things you can interact with. So if you have not signed up for the newsletter, you are absolutely missing out. Go phnx.com/newsletter, put in your email, and you'll start getting them tomorrow.
Yeah, and I tell you what, he is the most optimistic guy that I know.
Yes, he is.
He is. It's always the brighter side, and he's always got a dad joke for literally anything.
He's
a guy that once the team left, is one of those people that we were really worried about because he's one of our good friends with the organization and landed on his feet.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
things are great in Patrick Brown's life, and we're so happy to have him. And he got an avatar, a cartoon avatar.
He does have a cartoon head.
Huge.
The All City Network. When you get a cartoon avatar with the All City Network,
you're it.
You are in.
I'll tell you what, if you ever lose money in Vegas, he's the best guy to have next to you because everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
He has a good attitude.
I experienced that firsthand.
Yeah. He's a fun guy.
He's great. So
so I'm
definitely
happy to have
subscribe to the newsletter. He'll be there on Saturday.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the takeover tickets are sold out. However, you can still pregame with us at Zips on Mill before the game. Heck yeah.
Are they going to let me in on Mill Avenue? Will I be able to get on campus?
Yes.
I worry about that.
I'm
a creepy old guy on Mill.
Do you have some sort of background?
No, I'm just a creepy old guy on Mill. Like, is that a thing?
I'm sure it is.
Is Mill Avenue? Is there enough diversity in that community that there are bars, restaurants?
There are.
Yes.
There's an older crowd.
Tailored to a family and older crowd.
It's a place that people who live in Tempe go. Okay. Because there's a lot to do.
I don't live there.
It's
too far from my house.
Okay.
It's not in my bubble. I will be at Zips this weekend.
You can still get tickets. Tickets include free appetizers and first drink on us.
So you can do that still?
You can do that still. I just put the link in our chat so you can buy tickets. Yep.
What time
for
do
the pregame meetup? 3 o'clock at Zips. 5 o'clock is the game start.
3 o'clock.
So we can't wait to see everybody. And for those who couldn't get tickets to this weekend, a little birdie told me that we just secured tickets for the DU game in February.
Seriously?
So circle that on your calendar. More to come. But
that's the number one team in the country right now. That is the number one team
so that should
in
be
college hockey.
Awesome
defending
weekend.
National champion.
Yep.
Denver. Now that's a big hockey game too.
One other thing I wanted to mention on the topic of ASU is that ASU alum Joey Decord just signed a 5-year extension with Seattle, $5 million AAV. So you can find Arizona State ties everywhere you look.
2 ASU Sun Devils playing yesterday. Joey Decord and Josh Allen.
Yep. There you go. So that's something you absolutely love to see. Like I said, hockey belongs in the desert. It's still here. We're still covering it.
Don't get mad about it.
Every week on this show at noon, Wednesdays at noon, PHNX Hockey. We also have audio-only shows dropping every Friday wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure you subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review on there. We want you to become a diehard. Join the family. Join our Discord. It was so therapeutic last night. You also get 20% off merchandise as a diehard. You can get this Coyotes Forever tee, the Hockey Belongs in the Desert tee, the Deactivated Fans tee, the sticker pack, like Petey has stickers on his laptop now. If you sign up today to become a diehard, you can get any of those shirts for free. So many great perks perks, written content that's diehard only as well, and 20% off on all events, including our hockey takeover. So just so many ways and reasons to become a diehard over at gophnx.com/diehard. We absolutely want you to join the family. The NHL season is officially underway. It looks a little bit different for us this year than it did the last 3 years, but we're still going to be here every week talking the biggest storylines in the NHL. If there's any news about the NHL returning to Arizona, we're talking about it. Any ties to Arizona, we're talking about it. We're going to cover ASU. We're going to cover the Roadrunners. So we appreciate everybody so much for being here. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video. If you're listening on audio, like I said, leave us a review. Subscribe to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at SPetersHockey, at Leah Merrill, at Shane Deef, and follow the show on Twitter at PHNX_hockey. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you very soon.
We all silly like the mayor.